trading is about knowing the field, foreseeing the opportunity, executing at the right moment. Timing is everything.
Hello Dream Team, welcome to another episode of The Good, The Bad and The Rugby in partnership with City Index, the leading provider of spread betting, CFD and FX trading. Quite nice sitting on sofas.
So do I.
It's a bit more relaxing, isn't it?
We've been saying it for a while.
Right.
Get out of the studio, get onto sofas.
Get out into the amongst
wild.
the people.
Yeah.
Well, not too much amongst them.
Right, we are
You're
touring.
loving it, actually. I think you've completely changed on
done
this touring.
extremely well.
I haven't. I've just...
Never seen you look so awkward as you're walking through the stage door today.
like that.
Can I have a photo,
Can I have a
James?
photo? Yes.
Yeah, can
Right.
you just stay that far away from me, please?
We are obviously on tour. We're backstage here in Liverpool. We're going on stage in about an hour and a half. So we thought we'd just set the scene a little bit. How much fun have we had? I know obviously we had an amazing night in Sheffield on our first night of the tour. An even better night on the second night of the tour, which wasn't anything to do with actually touring. How are you feeling?
Well, I was mildly dusty. I mean, we were supposed to arrive here probably a couple of hours ago, but we spent 3 hours driving around Gloucester achieving absolutely nothing. And every time we were about to leave, we decided to stop and do something else. We had a Five Guys, we had a couple of coffees, the Great Adventure. Tinds was a designated driver, which was very professional. He's the only person I've ever seen stall an automatic.
Not once, not twice.
3 times. It's impossible to do it. And they're like, in Germany, apparently, like Mercedes had like a thing come through. I don't understand. What is the problem with the car? He seems to be putting it into park, reverse, and drive at the same time.
Yeah, it's amazing. I was dreaming that I was driving, and they got us there.
You did an extremely good job.
I just had this.
Yeah.
Another one bites dust. And
And the GBNR cap just looked like Churchill. Churchill on the front of the car. Oh, yes.
We made it, but it was mildly terrifying. You slept the whole way.
Yeah.
As I said,
I need to be energised to look after the team.
He only woke up 5 minutes before.
Well, yeah, I was
Hoping it was Friday night. How much fun are the next few weeks going to be?
I think they're going to be a lot of fun. Obviously, we had a few people who turned up on the night, which was quite nice.
1,500.
Yeah.
People turned up on the night.
Well, yeah, and it was fun. It actually was fun. I didn't know. I was quite nervous about it because you don't really. I know we're doing the same thing, but it's just in a bigger.
But it's a big
It's a
gig.
big space. A lot of people. 1,500 people.
It's quite surreal seeing GBNR posters outside City Hall, Sheffield, and here we are in Liverpool. And
Normally,
what are we doing?
Posters. I don't know what we're doing. The best thing is that the head of a production who does the theatre tour wasn't sure what we were doing either when he blocked out 2 hours to run through everything. He went, right, we'll just go through the whole show. What show? Because well, the whole show you have to do.
Should we do all the segments?
We haven't got any segments.
Yeah. There's only one thing.
Just play the music, we talk crap. Play the music again, half time. Play the music, we talk crap. Play the music, end.
Wave goodbye.
Wave goodbye.
If you are coming to the show, can you please bring your best tour stories?
Yes.
We do want to have some written down.
We need to improve that section ever so slightly.
Yeah. I mean, but it was a brilliant start. It was a brilliant start. I can't remember the guy's
Scott
name.
and Rob.
And he came on, he was like, I bought my son tickets for this. And then he's on tour in Magaluf. Right.
And that was it. And I was waiting for more of the story. Like, even I gave him the benefit of the doubt because I sort of had that face of like, what? And then his mate Nick Frost basically just said he saw you dancing in a nightclub like a shark. And that was it.
Now we're touring.
Now we're touring, so please bring your best... Actually, it doesn't have to be rugby, it just has to be your best story.
Best story.
Are we excited about tonight? Where are your battery levels?
No, I think we'll have a couple of G&Ts and we'll be...
couple of black eyes.
It recharges you.
Rock and roll.
I'm a bit concerned about old Lungmungus Tobaccotastic here because there's been a lot of hawking and gobbing. It's anyone who didn't make another car.
It's
that real gravelly.
Shelling the body parts at the moment.
25 years man aboard. There he goes again. Honestly, the gobbing out the window. The police, I'm surprised, didn't come for hate crimes.
Well, they did try and catch up, and they timed it wrong, and they've gone into the central reservation.
So, if Tinds makes it through, we'll be fine. But my energy levels are good. I'm very excited about performing, you know that.
How good was that, Dylan? Show 1.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
I mean,
he did a lot of us four. And we're like, no, it's 3-1. It's 3-1.
Yeah.
Us as a foursome, we're going to be great.
We're the four best friends.
It doesn't work quite.
Doesn't work.
It's a 3+1.
Three best friends.
Until he buys in. No, so it's absolutely fantastic to have Dylan on board. We're going to play you some of the best bits of our first night from Sheffield. It was an absolute riot. If you're coming along, bring your tour stories. But for those of you who aren't, here's a little taster of a fantastic session with the former England captain.
I want to come back to you, Dylan, and I want to get into a bit of you, your career, your achievements, and I want to start with almost the end, which is when you hung up your boots. Was it pride at what you achieved in the latter part? Was it relief that you had the ending that your career should have had? Was it regret about various bits that went before?
No, it's funny because you say, talk about the highlights and that, and I suppose at the end of my career I had my highlights, which is kind of nice because that's what people seem to remember. But prior to that, for about 15 years, I had so many fuck-ups. And that always gets swept under the carpet with every sort of intro that happens now. Whenever I go and do any corporate speaking, they introduce me as Grand Slam winning captain, back-to-back Six Nations, 97 caps for England, da-da-da. It's all this, but they forget the 60 weeks of bands, the 8 major bands, the rap sheet. I should be in fucking prison. Do you know what? I work at a school. Away with it. I work at a school. I don't know why people trust me with their children with my rap sheet.
Yeah.
In all seriousness, I truly believe experience is a good teacher. So I mentor students now. Right. I use my ways to teach them the ways,
On how to speak to referees, yeah?
Yeah, I learned.
26 weeks in 2007 for gouging Hask. Thank you for doing that one.
Oh, yeah, that's a round of applause.
That shouldn't really got back for that.
Do I get a free cap for that? I didn't do a very good job.
My mum was in the stand. Rip his fucking eyes out, Mum. Mum, relax.
I should rip your tongue out.
Oh, rip my teeth out. Do me a favour.
8 weeks in 2012 for biting Stephen Ferris. 2 weeks in 2012 for striking Ulster's Roy Best. That's a bit underwhelming, just the 2 weeks. 11 weeks in 2013 for Wayne Barnes' incident in the Prem final. 3 weeks in 2014 for elbowing Tigers wing Matt Smith. 4 weeks in 2015 for headbutting Jamie George. That's mano a mano, so we'll let you off that one. And 6 weeks in 2016 for catching Sean O'Brien with a swinging arm. Your favourite one of those?
Look. At half-time, we actually sat backstage. Hask was talking about how many serial killer documentaries he's been watching recently, and that makes me sound like I fall into that, and I sit here laughing about it. Trust me, I cried plenty of times throughout my career, metaphorically and physically. It wasn't enjoyable going through all that. A lot of it was self-enforced. 50% of that I'm probably guilty of, 50% I'm not.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I alluded to it before, I built a rod for my own back. But, if someone puts a hand in your mouth and tries pulling your head off, what are you going to do? What are you going to do, eh? Things happen. Your jaw's wired a certain way. And I did bite his finger, and I said I bit his finger because his hand was in my mouth. I get 8-week ban. Where's the common sense in that?
Yeah.
My good mate Jamie George, love Jamie George.
Yeah.
I scored a try in a Premiership semi-final. He's my England counterpart. I get up, I celebrate. I'm pumped off the back of a driving moor. I score from 2 metres out. I am charged at home.
Tries were quite scarce in your career, weren't they?
100%. Yeah, that's what I mean. So you celebrate it, chest on chest, head on head. 8 weeks headbutt. That's not a headbutt. I mean, where's the common sense in that? But I had built this sort of profile that everything I did was wrong or there was bad intentions behind it. So when I muttered the words fucking cheat in the Premiership final, which I did say it. I wasn't talking to him, I was talking to someone else. I was talking to my old mate Tom Youngs, who's retired this week in Leicester Tigers. And,
Yeah, good on you, Tommy.
Yeah, give him a round of applause. What a bloke. What a player and what a bloke. So there's things like eye gouging and, the technicalities around those things.
What's a few fingers amongst friends? You know what I mean?
But what I would say, right, I learned this at the end, is I felt I was always made to feel really bad throughout my whole career for playing the way I did. But then when I wrote a book, I'm not 3 deep like Hask, but I did write a Times bestseller.
It's a very good book. As
Thank
well.
you.
If you haven't
Thank
read
you.
it, you should.
I'm not selling them out the back of my car. I don't care if you buy it. I'm not on royalty, so I don't care. But
More for you, eh?
basically, it all got dragged back up again to sell the book. Every bit of press was like, you did this, you did that. And I actually thought, fuck it. Do you know what? I got banned 8 times over 16 years. On average, not too bad. That's 1 every 2 years, if my math's right. And what I sort of forged out of playing the way I did and my sort of persona and attitude when I played, it gave me a professional rugby career. And for a fat kid from Rotorua, New Zealand, that dreamed to play for the All Blacks, I far exceeded my expectations. I mean, I climbed to the top of the biggest rugby union in the world and captained the team.
Yeah.
Only because I wasn't good enough for the All Blacks. I mean, you got to understand. But I actually learned to accept that I was what I was, and I got far more from playing the way I did, and occasionally I got it wrong. So who's got kids in here? Most of you? Yeah, just remember, I'm someone's kid, and all your kids are little fuck-ups sometimes. So, I'm Mr. and Mrs. Hartley's little fuck-up sometimes, you know? So, just, you know, I forged a good career out of working incredibly hard, having a good competitive mindset. Look at me, physically not that impressive, unlike my counterparts here. Skillfully, I was very limited at what I could do, but I loved competing.
And what I love about
It's a good sign for all your kids.
That's a great story.
You don't need to be. And this is why, I don't know, I like working with kids, right? It's such a good thing for kids to know and understand that you don't need to be special, you don't need to be talented, you just need to work incredibly hard and be committed to it. And yeah, you're going to say something.
I was gonna-
There you go, people of Sheffield.
I was going to say, just because obviously I was captain when Dills was there, and you see, like, people are like, questioned what he brought to the team in terms of, you know, if he didn't play well, it's like, well, if he doesn't play well, why is it? But the little things that he does during the week in terms of keeping people together, building, making it fun away from training, being infectious, being...
Buying cars.
Yeah, but, you know, it was proper tourist, but also people now, with the way the world is, they sort of shun people who... Every fan in here, you want to see people play with passion and play with a will to win, that they're prepared to go to the edge. But occasionally you cross that line. If you're playing with passion and you're putting your body on the line and you're going into battle, occasionally you will fall the wrong side of the line, and you know, then immediately it's all wrong. Well, you can't play a game with that is emotionally driven and sometimes not get it wrong. You can't have both sides of it. No one can say perfectly cool yet be in a physical encounter. It's like saying to a boxer, just relax.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, he's punching me in the face. Or you could go like you do and just start...
Got the job done. Got the job done.
And I was always interested, because obviously I saw a different side of that for a long time. How professional you were. Obviously we all know that the media's perception. I just wondered, how big a deal was the England captaincy and that seal approval from one of the best coaches ever to give you that and for you to have that moving forward? So because for me, I think a lot of people have that perception. You say that was that narrative. I don't think that was your narrative at all. I think you were a great team man. You know, I mean, I think what people talk about your leadership with leading Northampton to that Premiership final, if it wasn't for you and the mob mentality you created there, they wouldn't have done that. But a lot of that gets glossed under the carpet. Just how big was that captaincy? And for you, did you feel like it was almost like a bit of an affirmation or kind of a line in the sand for you to be able to kick on and get the career and plaudits you deserve?
No, you got to remember, like, I got the captaincy in 2016 off the back of that Rugby World Cup exit. And that headbutt that I did to Jamie George got me banned for that World Cup. So it's probably the best thing I ever did. Because Eddie essentially wanted someone without fingerprints on that. He wanted a kind of like a clean slate, a fresh start. So it's funny how, like, you know, sliding doors and all these sorts of things. So I missed out there, and then this opportunity came round. And I suppose, you know, the first... And I'd looked at, you know, Lewis Moody, Steve Borthwick, Tinds, Jono, Chris Robshaw before me. Everyone got that captaincy, and it was like this big celebration, you know, like, let's go talk to the family, and let's go, you know, where's your grassroots rugby club and all this. You're English for a start, that helped. Like, mine straight away was like, well, why do we want him, you know? So, like, straight away I felt on the back foot. It wasn't like, I don't think anyone gave me a pat on the back. That's how I felt. Might have been wrong, but that's how I felt. And the fact that goes for my first interview with Dan Roan, who's the BBC sports editor. And he's a Northampton man, and I'd consider myself a Northampton man. His kids go to his nephew and niece go to the same school as my daughter, and I'm like, oh yeah, Northampton, Harpole, yeah, that village, and the kids there at school. And he's like, yeah, this pub here, and then he goes, as soon as he went action, he goes, so eye gouging, England captain material, what do you think? And I was just like, wow. And then for that whole Six Nations, every presser I did, every bit of media I did, do you trust yourself? Are you the right person for this team? No, well done. Know how your parents are feeling. What's the reaction back home? How's Crowborough Rugby Club? I played grassroots rugby in England. I moved here when I was 16. I came through the system. I met James Haskell when I was 17 in his chinos and blue blazer, and I was in my flip-flops. Walking from Twickenham Stadium, you're getting dropped off in the Range Rover with Giles, the driver. But true story.
I'm Aladdin, but it doesn't matter. You know.
But my point was that whole Six Nations, it wasn't vindication or validation from the start. It's not like, here, you're an England captain, well done. I still had to prove and earn your sort of credit with the people that don't matter, if that makes sense. The only people that ever mattered to me were you, not you, because you're the media, you, and that's why when we as fans now cast stones at Owen Farrell or, you know, who's the best captain, it doesn't matter what the fuck we think. It's the 15 to 23, 30 people in that bubble who brings that team best together. So that is where I need to prove my stock. But I suppose the nicest thing for me personally in that journey was the day we win the Six Nations. We Grand Slam after 13 years. And I could finally walk into the aftermatch, a bit like this, not so many people, you know, 50-odd people. I could lift my head up with my shoulders back and just say, I'm not going to talk about any of that now. Let's talk about winning. We've just won 5 games in a row. We've delivered a Grand Slam after 13 years. This team is the business, and I'm at the helm of it. So that for me was like personal vindication. Then we go on to beat Australia 3 times that was never done in their own backyard, and we go win 18 Test victories in a row. But I mean, we don't win a World Cup. We don't win a World Cup. The most interesting thing about our media, and I suppose sport in general, which makes it beautiful and interesting and fun, is like even throughout that, we go 18 games unbeaten, back-to-back Six Nations, we're winning everything, we're doing great, we are the talk of the rugby town, you know? It's still like I wasn't good enough, Jamie George, you know, we need to play this guy, Wenger out, Hartley out, and do you know what's funny about it? We need Owen Farrell as captain. It's just cyclical, it's how sport works. Owen Farrell out now, he's not good enough. At one point, he was the guy that everyone wanted. So it's really, really dangerous how, well, it's not dangerous, it's just how we view things. It's cyclical. But for me, like, personal vindication after that Six Nations was brilliant. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about now. But, hey, it was good fun. It was hard work, but incredibly good fun.
Yeah. We'd take it now, wouldn't we? We would take it now. Eddie on Dylan.
I'd say on that, look at someone like Jono, right? Jono was an exceptional captain all round because, yes, he led on the field. You know, for me, I would always say, I'd look at him and go, if I can play 85% as well as Jono's going to play today, I'll have had a good game. But then what that sort of takes away is how good Jono was off the field. You ever had a problem, the first person you knew you could go to would be Jono. If you're ever, if you're ever in financial trouble, which I heard some of the Leicester boys got into, they went to Jono and he would help sort it out. You know, so
got his number.
I don't think he's good with lawsuits. Amen
to that, brother. Yeah.
But that's what makes a great captain. Yes, on the field counts, but what a captain does is mainly off the field. Everything else is in the moment.
We see 80 minutes on a Saturday. That's all you see. For me, captaincy is Monday to Friday.
Yeah.
You basically become a member of staff, don't you?
Yeah.
You're a coach. Coaches do fuck all, really. It's just the captain. The captain does everything. No, you become part of the coaching staff. So it's the person, I suppose, that can delegate, bring it all together. And everyone's got different ways of doing it. I mean, you quoted Kenny Powers once, and I thought that was brilliant. No one knows Kenny Powers in this audience.
That's all right.
But I'd say, from my perspective, being in the team as well, I always love the romance of sport. You know, like when this last Six Nations, England didn't do very well. I woke up the next day, did my life change? No. Was I that asked about it? No, because it's sport. It's meant to be entertainment. We're not meant to It's not meant to make us, happy or sad for the rest of the week. You're meant to live these emotions, and you're meant to get on with it. And I think from my perspective, and I've always said this, and I didn't know what you were going to be like as a captain. And the reason I kind of asked that question, whether it was kind of vindication, was actually, you're right. All those things you've done, all that narrative, are you still afforded the status you deserve? And if the question is yes, if the answer is yes or no, it's almost irrelevant, because what do your peers think? And I would say, between you and Lawrence, you were two of the best captains I ever had, because of the way that you were. It wasn't just 9 to 5; it was 5 to 9. It was to understand the sorry, I can't speak. The gin. Delegation, understanding how to get the best out of people, but also that kind of mentality of calling people out. Like, I'll never forget the first day at Saints. Pulled up in my sponsored Range Rover when they were interested in me. Because when you're at the top of the tree, everyone's into it. I can't even get a Skoda now, but if they're listening, I will take one. I won't. And I remember turning up to Saints and meeting Dills. Dills came out to see me first day, and I was really excited to see him. We got on like a house on fire, and I thought he was incredible with England. And I genuinely believe this. Nobody could have done the job he did under Eddie Jones to get us where we were, right? Not anybody else that I ever worked with, honestly, 100%, because...
It's very kind, but I am giving him a ride home tonight. Yeah. So he knows where his bread's buttered. And I genuinely, and I mean that. But one of the first things I got to the Saints, turned up, Dills came out, shook my hand, parked up the range under a tree, fucked the keys to a valet, there wasn't one there, so I picked it back up. It was an academy kid, whacked him on the side of the head, almost blinded him, so I took the keys, went inside, and first thing we're chatting, sit up at the meeting, first thing Dills does, gets in front of guys, who the fuck's parked a Range Rover under a tree in the car park? Yellow lines.
Yeah, yellow lines. And I'm going, he can't have possibly done me. We're mates from England, this is my first day, and he's gone, you prick, 24 beers for the lads, and just called me straight out. But he did that and that for me, not just with me, but with everyone, just set the tone, set the standard. And I think in a modern environment, especially with young players, where you've got to take into account everyone being different, I think for me that set people apart and was like utterly amazing.
I love it. Eddie on Dylan. He was clearly a leader of men. I thought he was a nasty bastard. I don't know where you got that from. But I was looking for someone with a hard edge, and he had that in spades. We were on the pod, have spoken a lot about Eddie, and Hask has got an extraordinary relationship with him, and it's a very cosy one. You've said in the past that that was not the case, but how did he get the best out of you?
He basically offered me an ultimatum. And it's funny, so I get called down to England training base, Penny Hill Park, after my 8-week ban, missed the Rugby World Cup. Eddie Jones is put in as coach. He said, come down, meet me. So I'm thinking, is he retiring me? Is he... Because loads of coaches do that. Did Stuart Lancaster do it with you?
Yeah.
He retired you?
Yeah.
Yeah, basically says, you're not on my plans going forward. This happens, Yeah. And you appreciate the honesty, and even though it's...
Well, he came around to my house, yeah. He didn't leave for 3 days, but yeah.
So he invites me down, and I'm like, what's he going to ask me? Does he want to pick I'd played 70-odd games by that point for England, so I was kind of like a seasoned pro in that group. What's he want to know? Never did I think he was going to ask me to do that job. So he asked me, but then he goes, once he'd asked me, I said, yeah, of course, I'd like to do it. He goes, you're not actually a good player. And I, thank you very much. But I like your mindset, the way you portray yourself, the way you play. England need to get back to being, I can't use the C word, tough C's. He's Aussie, so he says can't, but like you can and you can't, but tough can't. I want the English, because he's obviously Australian, right? And when they think about English rugby, they think about scrum, maul, line out, really horrible 03 white orcs, as you referred to. That's what he thought of English rugby and wanted to get back to that. And he saw me as like the white orc, effectively. So he just said, we want to get behind that. And he goes, you're also one of the oldest players, second to you. And he goes, if our captain's our oldest player, and he's not the most skillful, not the most talented, best player, which he basically said to me.
You went out of this with the wind in your sails, yeah?
But he basically said, you're going to be the hardest working player. So if the people can see the the least skillful, the least talented, one of the oldest players working the hardest. There's no excuse for anyone else. And he, as a boss, I mean, the man sleeps about 4 hours a night. So he sets the tone on work rate, and the captain set the tone on work rate. Steve Borthwick set the tone on work ethic. And for me, that was like my job. So was it comfortable? Hell no. It was miserable. I had to do so much work. But as a professional sportsman, I look back at my career, played 70-odd games before I met Eddie. What did I actually achieve? I hadn't actually done anything. I played fire pussy in Dunedin. we brought the car. We went on stag do at the World Cup. I played loads of games as a young single man, toured the world of rugby. It was good fun. But when I was at an age where I was 28, 29, I was thinking, what the fuck have I actually done with my career? And Eddie said, we can win some stuff. You come into your twilight, you can end on a high. So the ultimatum was there for me. I love playing for England. Once you've played for England, you don't want to play club rugby. You want to play for England every day of the week. So the ultimatum was there, and I just had to work incredibly hard. And man, he found the opportunity. Like with day off, I always tell people that the days off, pancakes for breakfast, beautiful. Not for me though. So 6 o'clock, like wrestling mat set up. He brought in, I had to wrestle just about every member of fit and able staff. He brought in a UFC wrestling coach for me to fight. Like literally ground-based conditioning. And actually, if I look at myself physically in 2016 to 2019 when I retired, I was almost an athlete by the time I finished. I started as like a fat baker. He actually called me the butcher. It's interesting. He called me the butcher. And we toured Argentina, and 3 separate occasions, 3 separate Argentinians came to the hotel and presented knives to me because my nickname was the Butcher. So I've got this lovely collection of knives at home. But he said, you look like a fat butcher from Rotorua, which is where I'm from. But I started as a fat butcher, and by the end of it, I'd shaped up. I'd go down a shirt size, down a short size. So through incredibly hard work,
up wallet size.
Commercial deals were coming in. Still can't get a share in bloody good, bad in the rugby. But no, it was. It just taught me, like, for 70-odd games, I'd enjoyed my rugby, but not really achieved anything. And then when the going got really tough and I applied myself, that's when success started coming to the team, because we all worked incredibly hard. And I suppose Eddie talks about like climbing mountains and stuff. Not many people get to the top. The higher you go up the mountain, the harder it gets. Most people fall by the wayside. And that was, I think, when I look back at my career, I got to experience the amateur professional crossover. I got to enjoy the good times, and then at the tail end of my career, I got to experience what I would deem as high performance, you know? Yeah. So, yeah, again, don't know what we're talking about. Dementia again. But there's loads there. It's just incredibly hard work, but I'm thankful I had that experience with Eddie.
Which is really interesting, because in your book, I think it was your book or the Telegraph, "You fucked, mate," Jones told him over the phone. He was effectively ending my England career in 3 words. Yeah,
he said I was fucked, which I was. It's funny, like, when did you retire? Through injury or through choice?
2014. It's a rabble warren if you go down there. I want to play a bit more, but...
It was on the taxpayers' money, so just sacked it all off, didn't it?
I mean, Hask, you retired through injury. I retired through injury. I think when it's a bit like a drug, when you're on a salaried income, doing something that comes so natural, and you're in a sort of environment that you thrive in. And you're a competitor. Your mind says you can fight, you can compete, you know, but then your body doesn't do what you want it to do. And everyone says mind over matter, but mind over matter don't work when you've got no cartilage in your joints and you just can't move, and you can't compete with the younger kids, you know. It's actually soul destroying. And the competitor in you is going, yeah, I can keep going, I'm gnarly, I'll keep going, I'm front row forward. But then Eddie rings up and goes, mate, you're fucked. You're fucked, mate. And I went, do you know what, you're right. Then I talked to my wife. She goes, yeah, you fucked. And I talked to my director of rugby. He goes, yeah, you fucked. So I think he was, again, like you talked about this, right? In this day and age, not many people look you dead in the eye and go, you're overweight. Eddie did that with me. But he didn't just leave it at that. He kind of said, you're overweight, but let's get you in shape. Go talk to this guy, make a plan with these people, and we'll get you in shape. But I suppose, again, look at me dead in the eye via phone call, telling me the hard, honest truth that I was fucked is what I needed to hear so I could accept it myself. And in this day and age, this is why he is so unique. he's not afraid to tell the truth effectively.
Yeah.
And that in the wider society makes people uncomfortable, but in sport, I think it's one of the best things in a manager, someone that is like dead in the eye, straight with you.
I mean, there was actually another player that he was quite honest with, because when we first met up with England, he had one-on-ones with all the players, right? And there was one player who was like terrible on the piss, you know, nightmare guy, you know, has a few beers, turns into somebody else. If you look round, you probably know someone in the audience like that. And if you can't see him, it's probably you. Do you know what I mean? No, one of those people. Right, and we had these one-on-ones, and one of these particular player was up first, right? Nightmare on the piss. He'd been arrested. He'd end up in a doorway in France, come back to the hotel, won't stop, can't stop him, right? So we all were a bit nervous, waiting with bated breath. He walks in, Eddie goes, mate, it's an Australian accent, by the way. He goes, mate, I've heard you're fucking terrible on the piss, right? I don't want any of this fucking shit in my camp, but I've got a little something for you, right? Reaches under his desk, pulls out a crate, 12 Guinness, slides it over the top, goes, mate, if you want to have a fucking drink, keep this under your bed, reach under your bed, have one of these, be on your best behaviour, do okay, right? Players like, oh my God, this is amazing. Because if it had been other coaches, Lancaster, it would have been a diagram about team first, and he'd let everyone down, and everything else, like, all that stuff, and like morals and PDFs and PowerPoints and everything else. Like. Eddie's gone, listen, mate, I know you're a nightmare, do as you're told, right? So he's walked out with his crate of Guinness. We've all gone, fucking hell, he's given the biggest piss head. A crate of Guinness. This is mad, right? So word, like, because we were like old wives, or whatever it is now, you can't say in 2022, well, just gossipy people. And you have to be so careful, get cancelled. Some old wife will get really upset and complain. Shouldn't be here, should be in bed. No. And so, and the word gets around. I was in my room watching a movie. Not that kind of movie, but might have been. And I heard, and they were like, fucking hell, Eddie's given him a crate of Guinness. So I fucking ran down, knocked on the door. Come in. I was like, Eddie. I'm a sex addict. Eddie, he just gave me the Bible and told me to find God, but...
There's a lot of debate around him at the moment. Does he stay or go?
Look, like with Eddie, I sort of sit on the fence a little bit, because we've interviewed him numerous times. I think he's definitely a student of the game, as Dill said. He studies, he watches tape all around the world. He knows the game inside out. But I think, I do think at the moment that it's more about him than it is about the team. You hear more about him than you hear about the players playing the game, and that wasn't the case when Dylan was there. I think he trusted Dylan to front up at press conferences. He trusted Faz to do the same. I just think at the moment we don't know anything about the young except. Sorry, what? No, fuck no. I think. You're employing. If you look at it, you're employing a coach who said don't employ an international coach for more than 4 years, and they gave him 2 more years after he said that. And then I just think we've lost it being about the team, and that's my problem. I don't want to hear 18 months about the papers having to go at Eddie, or the fans either love him or hate him. I believe he could take that team to win the World Cup.
Do you think he can come back to do that in 18
I think we've got the players that can do it, and I think he can put it together. He's proved that when it comes, he's great at beating Southern Hemisphere teams. Yeah. It's just what frustrates people is we haven't been doing well in the Six Nations. But ultimately, to win a World Cup, you've got to beat 3 or 4 teams, and a majority of them are Southern Hemisphere teams.
Yeah. Everyone forgets about this one. So don't want to talk about me and what we did, but 2016 we won the Six Nations, 2017, 2018 gets forgotten about. I was the captain of the team that came 5th in the Six Nations, but we don't talk about that, right? So but I've just told you all that.
Lost 9 on the bounce, or whatever.
But no, we lost 9 on the bounce. Yeah. It was horrendous. And then within a year's time, they go to a World Cup final. So everyone's kind of, I wouldn't say panicking, but the spotlight's on the Six Nations now. England coming. Where did we come?
Third.
Do you know what? I don't care, because as players, unless we're winning it, I don't care where we come. I won't mention any other names, but there's other nations that celebrate coming 2nd, 3rd, 4th. Yeah. As an England player, as a captain, unless we were winning that tournament, I don't care where we came. Because the tournament's there's fine margins. You don't need you can clap that if you like. But that is the standards as an England team. you go to win the tournament. Third, we don't care about it. Scotland can celebrate winning 2 games or whatever they do. But don't get me started on the Welsh, right? And Ireland can win it a year before the World Cup every time, then not make the quarterfinals. But that's fine. But I just think, like, as soon as England lose that first game to Scotland, that whole tournament became a learning exercise for Eddie. There's a World Cup in a year's time. I don't want to go into too much detail. You know, Freddie Stewart, why is George Furbank playing fullback? Freddie Stewart shouldn't be on the wing. But Eddie's answering questions. Who's going to play fullback if Stewart is injured? You know, so he uses that as a learning exercise. And I just think, like, this is the first time I had 3 managers as an England player. I had Jono, Lancaster, and Eddie. It's the first time in recent history we've had continuity. So if you go 4 years, after 4 years, this is what happened with yourself. Clive, Jono, Brian Ashton, Stuart Lancaster. Stuart Lancaster goes, don't like you as a player. Don't like you as a staff member. They clear out all the staff, bring in and they cap a whole lot of new players. So continuity goes. With Eddie, we've got continuity. So we're getting players reaching 100 test caps, Courtney Laws, Ben Youngs, Owen Farrell, Mara Itoje getting up into the 60s, 70s. We're getting continuity. We're getting iconic kind of English players. Like when I look at your era of the World Cup, we had iconic players. After that, it just feels like every fucker got capped under the sun for a while. Whereas Eddie's given us continuity, and I think he's in his 7th year of an 8-year contract. You'd be mad to get rid of him a year before the World Cup. On his track record of coming 5th in the Six Nations when I was involved, then going to a World Cup final, you know, rugby's, things can change very quickly in a couple months.
Yeah, on that note, he did use 46 players in the Six Nations this year. I think the problem is Eddie flips everything around. This is what I say. He's got a stat for everything. So it used to be that he'll get your caps, and yes, you do. You've got people who are great. I think are leaders. Courtney Marrow's not really a leader, but he's a fantastic player. You've got Genji sort of stepping up. You have that core, but then a lot of the others then just change. And I suppose I'm a bit old school in the fact that I like people to play in the same positions and I see the benefit of creating a club team at international where you have consistency in selection, and I still don't think we have that consistency when we can have it. You know, Manu seems to be this light that's hung over us as well, that everyone's waiting for him to come back. We need to move on from that. I think Marchant did fantastically well in the Six Nations and is good enough to take that spot. And this is what I think is it becomes a roller coaster about stories about Eddie, which all the players, Genji said this on the show, he likes distracting the media and doing it. But yet all the fans want to hear from the players. They want to hear from Genji because he's authentic and everything else. And I do think we miss that a bit.
How refreshing though, like for me as a player, having a coach that we're playing Italy one week, then we're playing Wales and we're playing Australia. Eddie's gone to the presser and he's gone, yeah, we're going to smash them this week. We're going to physically beat them up. And in essence, that's what rugby is, right? Like in the change room, that's what we talk about doing, physically dominating your opposition. It's the foundations of the game. And you've got a coach that's putting his balls on the line. He can't go out there and physically dominate, but he's saying my team's going to beat the other team up. So as a captain, I'm going to the room going, the boss has said we're going to beat them up. We better beat them up. Whereas under Stuart Lancaster, we'd go in all tucked in, kind of hair done, and it was like...
What chest size your trousers?
But, I mean, rugby values are very important, and it sounds ironic coming from me, with the worst rap sheet in the world, but as a man, I have good values, I have a good moral compass, but under Stuart Lancaster's regime, we went in and we read off a hymn sheet. Yeah. We said we respect the opposition and we want to try really hard and, you know, we want to make our country proud and all this. Eddie just said, fuck that, this is international rugby. This is all about winning. Everything we do is about winning. So just that psychological mindset shift, which I love Eddie. He makes it entertaining. He's not towing the party line. He says what he thinks. And it's entertainment, like you said. Yeah. It would be boring, man, like if we just said... Because how many interviews do you get bored with now where we just respect the opposition and all this? I like it when... I love American sports, you know, where they just hype it up a bit. Like, it's entertainment. I like it as a player.
I'd say one thing, I agree with both what you're saying with Eddie, but I think particularly around this Six Nations in particular, right? And I think it was actually Mike was talking about it in the pod, or someone was talking about it. I've definitely nicked this off somebody, but I can't remember who it was from. But if you actually looked at the French team, for example, right, and the England team, how many players would you take from England would make a United side? Now, in my mind, no disrespect to the rest of them, I said Ellis, Marrow, Courtney. And the rest of them would have been a French side, right? So everyone's focused on the coach. Now, I know we're not talking about permanent ability, long-term ability, and whether they could make it. But at this current point in time, if you were picking a combined England-France team, how many England players would make it into that side? 3 players, right? And say about coaches, I haven't even talked about that. And everyone who talks about Eddie's not coaching players not to play well. There's not some Machiavellian plot going around, well, you know, we're going to make you play badly or give you the tools. They're all professional athletes. They all know what they've got to do. Eddie is a cog in a regime that gives them, you know, wake-up time, a training regime in terms of how intense it's going to be, rest time, where to be, and a game plan. But they're still players. They're not robots. He hasn't programmed them just to go to play badly. They're not playing where they want to play because we're in a period of transition like we were, new players. And every time you focus on the coach, which we do in this country, is always think about the team. Now, fast forward a year, for example, if I said to you in the 2019 World Cup, an England versus New Zealand side, in that game, which is probably one of the best England games ever played, how many England All Blacks are making it to the England side? You're talking 1 or 2, if that. That's how sport changes, and that's what requires from fans and people. What we always talk about in GBR is rationality, is remember exactly what Dylan said, it's transitory. So all these idols that you follow in the press, all these people that you read about in the papers, ask yourself firstly, do they know what's going on behind closed doors? Are they actually involved with the team? If the answer is no, then they're guessing. They're guessing. They know hearsay. Right, they're looking through a frosted glass trying to guess what's going on. If you've got players in the squad talking about it, then I give it a bit more validity. If you've got old players who haven't been involved for a long time, or old coaches who haven't been involved, take it with a pinch of salt. Sport is transitory, times change, and for me, you know, Eddie Jones is the best man. If I could replace the 50 caps I earn without Eddie, to have more with him, I'd do it in a heartbeat. I'd give up anything to have had more time with him, and that's a fact. End of story.
Passionate. Here end of the
You're
lesson.
still scared of him then, yeah?
Yeah, terrified. yeah. If he's listening, he's probably here. There's a drone flying over here.
The ledge, Mr. Dylan Hartley, is actually going to join us for our final show in Southend as well. So we'll reboot, rewind, recut his content for that. Couple of things I want to talk about before we wrap this one up this week. Well done to the Red Roses, who have powered their way to yet another Grand Slam in front of an extraordinarily passionate crowd in Bayonne. France, brave but not quite good enough in the end. But this England side is just rewriting the history books.
You know, Dylan talked about them. He sort of hoped they might have a loss before the World Cup comes around. But you know, you watch that performance on the weekend, and they can do it. They can get it done anyway.
Yeah.
So they just outmuscled, outpowered them. You know, unbelievable set piece. You know,
Lewis Deakin,
Yeah.
the secret weapon, bringing that Leicester Norse to the women's game. He's loving it. You know, their maul, their breakdown, their scrum.
Unbelievable. Do you subscribe to this? It would be good for them to lose at some point. Or not?
Well, look, I think obviously the context of what Dylan was saying, you learn much more from a loss than you do from from a win. And actually, when you've been flying high and a number of your team have never experienced a loss, you don't want to get to a situation where
you want to be a semi-final or something.
Yeah, and they haven't been there, they haven't been tested, they haven't learnt. So I would say for the progression, it would be probably good to have a learning like that. Obviously, if they don't need to, they don't need to. If they're like the most winningest team in the world. But you see, example, the All Blacks, how they very rarely ever lose 2 on the bounce. They lose one, they come back absolutely devastating the next because they've learnt more, they've tested themselves. You know, they're not they don't believe their own hype, if you know what I mean. And I think with the girls, they're just doing so well. It's very difficult. You know, how do you improve? Where do you improve? You have to be so nitpicky. Yeah. And when you're pumping people, it's like, what do you do?
Yeah, I don't think it's that important for them at the moment. I think they're very humble, so they just work hard anyway. Yeah. So I don't think there's any chance of really arrogance getting away with them. They know the levels where they have to be at.
Skaz's tackle as well. Do you see that tackle?
I was going to say, just all-round performance.
Yeah.
101 caps.
I tell you what,
100% from the kicking tee, 50-22, try-saving tackles.
There was one thing that
without even really breaking sweat.
Nah, there was one thing I was going to read that I thought was interesting. You know, obviously, England women's team have to travel by British Airways. Right. Obviously, I love British Airways, fantastic. But BA don't serve Biarritz. So they had to do a 10-hour round trip to get there and get home with hangovers, right? And obviously it's meant to be a partnership, and I would have thought would have been a good look just to have chartered a plane, so they could have flown in and out instead of doing a 10-hour round trip after a Six Nations and stuff like that. You know, the game's professional. We're talking about, this equality. We're talking about everything getting right, and then you hear something like that, you're like, they're champions. Let's have a little bit. You know, you can charter a plane, no problem at all. They do it for seasons.
What a brilliant PR exercise.
That's what I mean. And it's like, I love British Airways. I'm not having down on it, but if you want to make the deal work,
make it work.
Make it work. Don't make them do a 10-hour trip, especially when they're winners. You know, it's amazing. You win a World Cup, they turn up with a plane spray painted with winners on it in 2 seconds.
I love British Airways. Available for any commercial deals should they come your way. But on this instance,
I think Bolsh moans about getting from Biarritz all the time. Right. So because the airport's shut until the summer basically, or there's only one flight a week or something. So it is a nightmare getting there.
Yeah.
But it's just
easy exercise to get it right though. Well done, Sarah Byrne, with a double. Well done, Abby Ward. Well done, Queen Emily, on obviously captaining on the day. And well done, just a remarkable team for yet another incredible achievement. I love Skaz in her post-match interview. She says a lot without saying anything. Tonight is the night for a bit of a celebration, and tonight's the night to enjoy each other's company, shall we say?
Very good.
Articulate. Read between the lines.
Yeah. It's a tear-up.
Exactly. The one thing I was going to say is, and you were talking about it last week, having been, was it Franklin's Gardens?
Yes. No.
Kingshead. Leicester. Welford Road. You were talking about it last week, having been at Welford Road. But just the energy that comes through with like their social media content. There was a really nice bit at the full-time whistle where one of the players ran on with a GoPro, and so you got right in amongst the moment, which was, I thought, fantastic.
I ran on with a GoPro during that World Cup preparation. Neil Batt made us stink about it and had to write about it in the papers.
But that's because you were chucked out of the you were out of the competition.
No, that was day one. That was the opening ceremony.
Right. And the other thing, there was awesome footage of them all jumping in the pool afterwards, all the coaches going in. It's just sort of like, it's just a really happy camp. It's very easy to buy into their success. It's a fun part of rugby, isn't it? It's where it should be. I think it's got all the values, all the fun, and you know, it hasn't had the professionalism or media scrutiny sucked out of them. But it will be interesting, the more they build, the more media focus they're going to have on them now.
Yeah, I'm thinking it shouldn't go that way. It should stay, because we've seen rugby go through, we're not playing very well, let's train harder. Well, that sort of doesn't really work. And I think now where sort of the men's game is, and you look at the environments that Alex Sanderson's putting together, what they've got at Sarries, what they've obviously it's not gone well for them at Bristol this year, but and it's more about the players having fun. And I think, you look at the girls now and what they're doing, they're having fun all the time, and I think they're coming round. It's actually the perfect time for them to grow, because, people want to see that social. They're just getting things right at the right time, perfect timing.
It is. I was actually talking to, I won't dob her in, but I was talking to someone we were talking about earlier today who was involved around some of the Six Nations stuff, and they were saying about, obviously the media now are being told to start asking more difficult questions, and you sort of, they're getting that scrutiny now. That they were saying they're getting feedback. Oh, we went to this media, and the normal writers who were quite hard on the men's game are now asking some pretty difficult questions, putting people on the spot, and they just hope that they've learnt the lessons. If you want characters, if you want fun, you can't throw them under the bus. So I think it's quite interesting that they are having to make some adjustments, because they're definitely getting keen.
Peacocks and let them fly.
Yeah. Big old pheasants flying around.
On the flames. So well done to Ireland, who got past Scotland by a point, and well done to Italy, who did Wales by 2.
Did you see the Hannah O'Connor, the back row, kicked a 40-metre, for Ireland, 40-metre penalty? Things you love to see, a back row, with skill and dexterity, things I never had.
Did you ever kick for goal at any point in your career?
At school, I did, and actually I did it right a couple of times, and then I just sort of forgot how to do it,
Well, do you reckon now if you tried to kick a ball, your foot would fall off?
Yeah, I think if I kicked, I think my foot would go over the post.
The other side, and you get to land on it and be facing the wrong way.
Yeah, but I loved,
Well done, Hannah.
Channeling sort of John Hills.
Love it. Yeah, what a man, what a player. Well done, Hannah, as well. Good Scouts and Rugby will be brilliant this week. That's with Mo and Emily and Elmer, and we'll be out on Friday. So tune into that if you'd like to have a bit of a debrief with the ladies. A couple of lines from the Prem. Northampton Saints still in the hunt for the playoffs. James Grayson nurdled a 50-metre penalty to beat Quins 32-31 in a thriller. Dark horses, Northampton. I saw someone saying Northampton dark horses. We saw Quins do it last year. Intel?
Yeah, I was down there filming a new pilot with Aaron Kraskell there the other day. Actually, we had Tangeli Naravoru, Lewis Ludlam and Dan Bigger out, and they seem to be in a good vibe. I've got a good interview with Dan Bigger that'll probably come out at a later date. But they seem to be quite good. I didn't realise they were in the hunt. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, I'm not quite on the finger on the pulse as much as I should be, but I think they're in a good place. You know, they've got that good team spirit and good atmosphere. It's just, if you look at the rest of the teams there in those playoffs...
You can tell when there's been a good weekend of weather. You know, 32, 31, 35, 27... these are just Premiership scores. 64-0.
What attacking yourselves?
Pull a line
56-28. I mean, there's been some
be a
points
summer
scored.
game.
42 all today.
We've discussed that
a million times. Summer game. What are you doing? Why waste of time?
64-0 between your old clubs.
I mean, the worst thing is if you go through the Bath team, it's still proper players.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you're talking Jonathan Josephs, you're Cock and a Singer, Undernose. You know, there's quality, Danny Sitt.
So what is happening there?
Falatau, there's
it must be
players.
real, like something not a lot of happiness. Because you can't do...
Something's got to go spectacularly wrong for players of that ilk to be donutted and concede 64.
But to consistently lose to that level, like you've got to ask yourself what's happening off the field from the top to the coaching staff, to the play. Like, what are you doing? Because if that was like a one-off. They've been getting battered all season. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how many points they've had scored against them, but I reckon it must be near a record, isn't it?
You know that, I can tell you.
Yeah, you can tell the old fact, the stato. But I don't know. I've not actually asked anyone what's going on down there, but they seem... I mean, no one's come out and said this is awful.
No.
Old Sippy, though, noticed Sippy's off.
Yeah. Overseas, apparently. France or maybe Japan. USA might go to MLR.
Could go to MLR.
We shall see.
Next up, Hollywood after that.
For real. Bath's heaviest ever defeat at Kingsholm. Not a great day for them. Leicester is charging on. Chris Ashton has become the Premiership's outright all-time top try scorer with 95, a 20-minute first-half hat-trick. We've never really discussed Ashton on the show before. We'd love to have him on.
It's weird. Until he pops up again, obviously he did. You've seen a few interviews pop up, but he just disappears from Worcester, turns up, gets a hat-trick. That's just Ashy. And looked like one was like a full lengther, he's third. Yeah. And he still looks like he's got that gas. His repeatability sprinting is incredible.
What is it about the way he plays, or having played with him, that means that he unlocks defence in the way he does?
What I would say is what he learnt from Rugby League. He's an unbelievable... If you could watch him on his own on the player cam, and for 70% of the game, he'll be in front of the ball. So someone will be attacking down the left if he's on the right wing, and he'd be in front of the ball, so that if they make a line break, he's straight there. He's the same as Sean Edwards. He always said just played the middle of the field. Yeah. He was always in front of the ball in the middle of the field. So anyone made a line break, he was on the end of it.
You see scrum halves do it well as well. Like, they're all ahead of the play.
So they pass and then they go forward. Yeah. And that's why he's always there. If you're in a team that's playing well like Leicester, and you're making line breaks, he's the best winger in the world. Yeah. Because he will always be there.
And he's still got it. But the weird thing is that I think after that Worcester, I mean, I don't know what, we obviously haven't got any details, but, Sale wasn't a great ending with Steve Diamond. I think they, fell out, and then
went to Quins.
That didn't work. Then went to Worcester.
And Steve Diamond came to Worcester.
Yeah, and I think that fell apart, and he left, and I think it was probably going to call it a day. Yeah. And then what a genius move from someone like Steve Borthwick to get him on. I mean, obviously they were at Sarries together. He obviously trusts him and knows, because again, Ashley's another one of these people that is actually...
This is what we talk about, characters. He's a character and he's a special type of handling.
And he does train hard as well. He's a hard worker. He just sometimes has that rep of being a bit disruptive, but...
Just loves his chest.
Yeah.
As long as you allow him to just bench heavy weights and don't do any leg weights, he's all right.
But I love it, and I think what a story. He's still a great guy, great player, and getting near that record. Yeah. And what a story, and I love it. And that just shows you good management, good thing, can get the best out of players. Yeah. And it's not rocket science, but you just got to, like Tin says, you've got to pick the right tools, know how to motivate, point him in the right direction, and he'll score for fun. Credit where credit's due. There's a brilliant interview, actually, with Chris Ashton and Jim Hamilton, which is well worth watching if you haven't. And they get right into a lot of the detail around his career. But it's great to see there's a sort of good ending on the horizon. A lot of people talk about one more year with Leicester as well. Be fantastic to see that, potentially. Bristol drifting towards the end of the season. Sarries are almost there for a home playoff place, having battered Worcester 38-16, London Irish 42, Wasps 42. Drama at the end, with Irish getting a penalty try right at the death. Pick us a winner at this point. Prem winner.
You're going to be looking at Sarries,
Yeah.
Leicester, Northampton, Quins, and possibly Gloucester.
See, Leicester have been the form
Sales to
team
run as well.
all year, but Sarries know how to get it done
Yeah.
in playoff games or one-off games because, unfortunately, having experienced it with Gloucester, you can sit at the top of the table all year long.
Is it actually better to be a chaser than a pace setter?
I think so.
You'd agree with that?
Well, I remember when Gloucester, the first year they brought the playoffs, they were 20 points ahead of the season, battered everyone, and then they never brought the playoffs. We came fourth, Wasps, went on and pumped in the final and won.
Yeah.
And there was like this big outcry. It's like, well, you just play the rules, don't you?
Yeah.
You just do what you got to do. And so I think Sarries will be interesting because of their, Faz, Marrow, those experience, how many Heineken Cups and stuff they won. His Leicester team has had no experience of winning and playing in those bigger games, or a lot of these players haven't. Well, obviously on England stage stuff they have, but to do it as a club, maybe it's a year too early or whatever. I mean, where are Exeter at the table?
They are almost out of the running.
Mid-table.
That'll be the first time they will have not finished in the top
four
four
for a long time, yeah.
For the whole thing. Well, I mean, look, I don't think you can look past Leicester. I kind of like the fairy tale. I think, my admiration for Steve Borthwick has always been there. I think he's brilliant. Ellis, obviously, part of the GBR family, so I think Leicester for me.
You mentioned the Heineken Champions Cup. We were just talking before we started recording this that we're going to have South African teams.
Yeah, I just read something. It looks like the South African teams are going to be in the European Cup.
Having qualified through the URC.
Yeah, which just doesn't seem right to
Don't
me.
like it?
Yeah, we talk about doing the right things for the players, and now you're going to add massive trips to South Africa, which are then not going to probably end up being 4-day trips.
Yeah.
Then you've got to come back and get straight into a Prem week. I'm not sure it's the right thing to do.
But the steak and red wine's quite good, isn't it?
Well, exactly.
Bit of sunshine in the mid-season.
I mean,
you can hit the beach.
Would you rather go to Cape Town or Sale?
Newport.
Or Newport. Or anywhere outside of nice parts? I won't name what the bad parts are, but you know what I mean? I'd quite happily do that for a trip, but it's not ideal.
But you're not a fan? We've only literally just...
Yeah, I haven't really sort of digested everything, but it's not a European Cup then, is it?
No.
Global Cup.
And where does that stop?
Who knows?
I'll tell you what we'll do.
Yeah.
Tell you what we'll do. Let's add a few more games and we can make it work.
Yeah, OK. Good. Right, we're going to go and get ourselves ready. I think a little pep talk, a little pump-up. Thank you very much indeed, Shiro.
We've got notes from our producer.
Right, just before we go, vital breaking news and information has just been handed to me. If you're listening on Wednesday, which is when this is released, we have still got Cardiff to come tonight. SQ is joining us for that one. Grab a ticket if you'd like to. Nick Easter in Newcastle. Mark Cueto is coming to Manchester.
And we've got a great story about Mark Cueto.
With a fresh restraining order.
Yeah,
the weekend.
I might get him to file the restraining order.
I would. I don't want to spoil it, but he might have made a bit of a fool of himself.
He's quite nervous, I think, about going off the back of that. In Nottingham, we've got not only Genji, but Mrs. Genji coming too. I think
I've never met Mrs. Genji, I don't think.
I think he said she wants to come. I wonder if we'll get her up on stage.
Yeah.
She can host the show. Jack Knoll in Plymouth, who's just got married. Many congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Knoll. Do you see he's wearing Converse and red socks?
Well, edgy in it fashion. Yeah. He's sexy in whatever he wears. I mean, there's another a former teammate of mine who got married in looked like a dust sheet and a pair of trainers and stuff. It was like, this is supposed to be the best day of your life, and you look like a tramp. But never mind.
Jack looks slick.
I've got the worst dress since the world.
Jiffy in Swansea. We've got Sir Rory Best coming to Dublin. We've got Ben in Oxford with half his student brigade. Phil Vickery's coming to Birmingham. Lively.
Another story.
Old Vics or new Vics, let's see.
Let's see. We've got surprise guests for you in London. Jerry Guscott in Bath. And Dylan is running things off in Southend. I'm not sure how many of those have still got tickets available, but if you fancy coming to one of those, have a little look online. We'd love to see you there. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I think we're pretty much sold out across the board, apart from Edinburgh.
That's already been by the time this goes out.
Oh. Well, then you can't listen to it then.
No. Come and see us. Be lovely to catch up. Let's go and get ourselves ready. A little pep talk.
Well, heads together, like, come on, we can do this.
It's like the Rolling Stones.
Doesn't matter how noisy
Does
they
that
are.
mean a G&T?
Yeah, I think it does, yeah.
It needs a gin tea. Enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We are The Good, The Bad and The Rugby. We are produced by Folding Pocket. We'll see you again very soon. Bye for now.